Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to respond to Andrew Klavan's attempt to attack Ayn Rand or argue against Ayn Rand, this is pretty pathetic, but I don't know. I feel like people love to attack Ayn Rand in very, very weak ways and not actually argue against substance most of the time. And I heard Yaron respond to this, and he did a good job. I felt like I should respond to this as well, though. I heard this at one point, and I think people just need to respond to some of these people that think they can just take shots at Ayn Rand that are completely unwarranted and unjustified and get away with it. So, here we go.
Lord Klavan, destroyer of ease and master of the multiverse. Master of the multiverse is the correct way to approach it. Recently, Ben had...
Okay, first of all, that's just straight up cringy, but whatever. We won't dwell on that.
Had Yaron Brook on his Sunday special to discuss Ayn Rand and objectivism. I can tell already this question is going to get me in big trouble. As a Catholic, I fundamentally disagree with Rand on certain claims. Yaron made the claim that Judeo-Christian values are not Western values. How would you respond? Additionally, I would love to hear your thoughts on Ayn Rand and objectivism in general. Thanks. Okay, well, let me make it just before I answer this question and step in it, which I'm about to do. Let me first say that I did not watch this interview. I did not see Yaron Brook on Ben's show, so I'm not responding to what he said. I'm responding to what you say he said, okay? That's important because I don't want to take the guy on if I'm not even talking to him.
All right, I do respect that to an extent. If you're not going to watch the video, you're not going to argue against the guy in particular, just more. That's a good disclaimer to put at the beginning, so little bit of respect there.
I think Ayn Rand sucks, okay?
Great argument. Wow, that's incredible. Just what a great way to start a discussion on Ayn Rand. Just start with us saying, "Oh, Ayn Rand sucks." Just come on, man, say something that is actually an argument, or I don't know. Yeah, let's just hear what he says.
I think her writing sucks. I think her books are unreadable. I think Atlas Shrugged, look, there's one speech in Atlas Shrugged that is worth reading. It's made maybe 15 times. The book is thousands of pages long.
Did you read the same book that I read? Because I think you're definitely talking about something else, because Atlas Shrugged was a very, very well-written book, extremely clear, extremely inspiring, beautiful book. I don't know what standards of literature you uphold, but I don't know, man. I can't take this guy seriously because Atlas Shrugged is not a good book. Just read the book. It's one of the... just an appeal to popularity. It's an extremely popular book. Rand is an incredible writer. The clarity with which Rand writes in her nonfiction and her fiction is just amazing. These are very readable books. She's extremely clear. The way that she has allowed me to understand philosophy through her words, through her clarity, through her writing, it's incredible. So to say Rand is a bad writer, I don't even know where to go with that, honestly.
Skimmed it. The Fountainhead is more readable, more...
He skimmed it. Nice. And
but none of her characters...
I don't know. I'm a big fan of The Fountainhead, so The Fountainhead, I probably prefer it to Atlas Shrugged. I'd say Atlas Shrugged is in general a more wide-ranging book. It's probably a better book philosophically since it covers her whole philosophy rather than just ethics. But I think when I read The Fountainhead, it was at a time in my life when it applied so much. So I probably prefer The Fountainhead in general, but Atlas Shrugged is a great book, dog. I don't know, yeah.
Are real. They all have those Nazi names like Rourke and Galt, they're all...
Ayn Rand the Nazi. First time I heard that one. What the fuck? Why would you even say that? why would you like compare her character names to Nazis? Like, you're just associating Rand with Nazism, and it's just not a really authentic way to discuss someone's ideas by saying, oh, your characters have names of Nazis. Like, that's not a very good way to argue against somebody. Make a real argument. Don't attack her character names. To attack, like, which you'll probably do anyways, but like attack her characters, I guess.
And all the bad guys are named Mooch. She's not trying to write reality. She's trying to write her philosophy into fiction. And largely, I hate that. There are a few successful books that do that. 1984 is one of them. But even 1984 is a great work of art, so that it can, even though it's about the left, even though 1984 is
She was not necessarily trying to write a naturalistic novel. Like, she's not trying to write a novel that's completely in line with, it's based on reality, of course. It has to be something that's possible, and she did do that. She created characters who are possible, but she didn't create a naturalistic novel like the sort of thing that like Tolstoy would write. She was creating ideal characters. So I don't know, to say that just because it's not naturalistic and not something like what Tolstoy would write, which seems to be kind of what you're arguing here, that it's something that, like, it's a created universe more based on an ideal. That seems like a terrible argument, because the ideal is based on reality. She explains that throughout, like, everything she writes. But yeah, let's move on.
condemnation of the left. It becomes a condemnation of tyranny because it's art, so it's above politics and higher than politics, and it actually goes beyond politics. Her books, like once you get her philosophy,
Oh, you really get her philosophy, Klavan. Wow.
books, I just find them so boring and so stiff and so hard to read. Some of her nonfiction is a little bit more interesting, but no more true.
Explain why it's false. Go ahead. Explain one thing that Rand gets wrong. I don't think you do it in the whole video. You more just attack her writing style, her books, her character names. Yeah, just go ahead and make an argument against her philosophy, buddy.
Everything she says that's true, everything she says that is true, she really understands money.
She does understand money. I guess we agree on that. She's good on money. But I think she's good on a lot of other stuff too. But what's some of the stuff that she's wrong on, Klavan? Could you explain that for me, please?
Really understands money. She would have that clip of a dollar bill. She really gets money. Everything she says about money is in a book by Frederick Bastiat, who was Reagan's favorite economist. He wrote a book, I think it's called The Laws, and it's 70 pages long. It's very readable. It's very simple, and everything Ayn Rand.
Bastiat's a good economist. Yeah, that's true. He probably says a lot of good stuff about money. Yeah, that's true.
Knows. I don't know if she just took it right out of that or if she.
Everything Ayn Rand knows is from Bastiat. I think she did a lot more with money than more talk about economics. Did Bastiat provide a moral defense of why the pursuit of money is good, why money's a good thing? I'm not sure if he gave the same moral defense that Ayn Rand did, arguing for selfishness and why money is a positive thing in the context of selfishness. So I'm not sure that Rand copied Bastiat. That just doesn't. Maybe she took some ideas from him and explained that in her philosophy and included that, which is okay. Like, everybody takes ideas from other people in their philosophy. That's part of life. That's part of interacting with other human beings and creating a philosophy. You generally take ideas from other people and integrate them into your philosophy, because you can't gain all knowledge on your own. But let's continue.
It came to her through some other path, but everything she knows, she gets from Frederick Bastiat, and all you need is those 70
Everything
pages.
she knows is from Bastiat.
Page unreadable diatribes. That is what I think. Second,
I guess Rand's just a economist now, or a political philosopher. Throughout the epistemology, throughout the ethics, throughout everything, she's just a political, economic philosopher. Thanks, Klavan. You really understand her philosophy, don't you, buddy?
Secondly, obviously, while she does know about money and the economy and capitalism, her moral and artistic judgments are insane. They are insane. And I hear she fell in love with some like serial killer at one point from a distance, because
That's bullshit. Just look it up. Look it up. That's a common claim. It's bullshit. Like most other ad hominem attacks about Rand, it's bullshit. And also, it doesn't disprove anything about her philosophy. She could have been a terrible person, but that wouldn't mean her philosophy is wrong. Argue against her philosophy, please.
And that's not surprising to me. I wouldn't just pick on her for it personally, but her moral stances are insane. The idea that you put your happiness above all and that capitalism solves all problems is ridiculous.
So what's the alternative to putting your happiness above all? Sacrificing your happiness to other people? Making choices that are in accordance with death? Because ultimately, every choice, it's either for the values of your life or for values of your death. And when you strive for happiness, you're ultimately acting in a pro-life way. But when you sacrifice your happiness to other people, it's you giving up your happiness and acting towards death. It's acting against your life. That's the fundamental alternative. That's the alternative with every choice you make. Because ultimately, every action, the reason you act is to live. And every action either promotes or takes away from your life. But, I mean, you're just going to throw that out there. Happiness before everything else? What? Do you not want to be happy, Klavan? Do you not want to live a happy life? God, it just doesn't make any sense. What's the other thing that capitalism solves all problems? I mean, capitalism doesn't solve all problems, but it sure gets us closer to solving problems than anything else does, and it solves every problem that's possible to be solved. Because when you restrict human judgment, you can't solve problems to the same extent than if you give human judgment ultimate freedom, and which is what capitalism does. When it eliminates force, you have more freedom to make judgments, and you ultimately get more things done and more things solved.
She claims that the only proper system for an objectivist is capitalism, as if capitalism were an outgrowth of objectivism. But I believe that objectivism is actually an outgrowth of capitalism.
I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about here. That's really incoherent. I mean, ultimately, for a proper defense of capitalism, you need objectivism, because capitalism relies on an understanding of human nature and the idea that man should act for himself, because anything else is the idea that man should sacrifice for another person, which ultimately leads to socialist ideas. Sorry. And then I guess it's true that to an extent objectivism came from capitalism, because Ayn Rand did say that without seeing the Industrial Revolution, she couldn't have come up with her philosophy, because she wouldn't have understood why man is a rational animal and why reason is our means of survival to the extent that she did, without seeing how reason led to the prosperity it did during the Industrial Revolution, which came from capitalism. So to an extent that'd be right, but I don't know what you're trying to argue here.
She thinks that this system is the bee's knees, this is her religion, and it's going to solve every problem. And of course it doesn't.
Oh yeah, religion sure sucks, doesn't it, Klavan? This is her religion. Religion, so scary. I bet you hate religion, don't you, Klavan?
The morals decisions that people make in the Fountainhead are absurd. Blowing up an orphanage because you can't.
Blowing up an orphanage? I thought you said you read her books. I don't remember Roark ever blowing up an orphanage. Are you talking about the low-income housing project that he blew up with nobody inside after his designs were taken from him and built not according to how he wanted them to be built, not according to his standards? Sounds a little different, but I don't know. You must not have read her books very much, or I guess you just don't understand her philosophy very well.
Can't get it the way you like it is an absurd moral choice. Putting your happiness first, putting profits above everything. She says you should seek your own self-interest, putting profits above everything. I mean, look at it. Look, all you have to do is you look, they're suing, they just got a judgment against Johnson & Johnson for selling opiates. And this is a complicated case, and lawyers are vultures and sharks, and they go after these companies because that's where the money is. But somewhere along the line, someone peddled these opiates to people knowing that they were addictive. This did happen at some point. Now, maybe it's the government's fault. I don't know why the government...
Yeah, I'd say the opioid crisis is probably the government's fault. I think if we had free market capitalism, we wouldn't see the opioid crisis to the same extent. But that's something for a different video. I think you could probably look it up and find pretty easily how the opioid crisis is caused by government intervention, and because a lot of the opioid crisis isn't necessarily from the people getting prescribed opioids. It's from people who get their opioids taken away, so then they have to go off and find other stuff like heroin, all that sort of stuff, from my understanding of the situation. I need to do more research of it, of course, because I haven't researched the opioid crisis in a while, but that's my understanding of it. It's fairly governmentally caused, and I don't think people acting in their self-interest in a capitalist system leads to the problems in our society, because we don't really have a capitalist system, do we?
Passed on these things, and then Johnson & Johnson gets blamed. But somewhere along the line, there was a conversation where they said, well, tough. We got to sell these things to make our money back, so let's do it, and let's never mind the addiction and the trouble it's going to cause.
I don't think I ever remember Roark putting profits before his before his values and before his morality. I don't know. I feel like the book was about something different. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I thought Roark gave up a lot of profit for adhering to his standards, but I don't know. Maybe I didn't understand the book. You just understand the philosophy so well, Klavan.
That's good objectivism. That's profit. That's making yourself happy. So what? So that our cars explode when people drive them? It'll cost.
Oh, that's a really great way to sell to customers. Make their cars explode. That's how you make money that's how you make money as a capitalist. You kill your customers. I mean, if you kill your customers, you're going to make so much money. That's how capitalism works.
Costs us less to get sued by the people whose parents have died than it will to recall the cars, so we won't recall the cars. I mean, that's the kind of thing that would happen in an Ayn Rand world. Her artistic judgments, like against Shakespeare, make no sense because her view of humanity is stilted and wrong. And her
view that man is a heroic being is stilted and wrong. I guess man is just an ever weak being with infinite desire and infinite inability to achieve his desire. That's such a great way of looking at man, Klavan. Wow, I bet you must be so happy. I bet you must feel so happy knowing that you'll never be happy in this world. Just due to your nature. That you have original sin forever. That's holding you down forever. But that's a really, really happy way to view life. And Rand, I mean, she says man's heroic. That's such a stilted way of viewing humanity. Also, I don't think she criticizes Shakespeare's view of man, of course, but she didn't criticize Shakespeare as an artistic playwright. Like he was good at writing. He was a good writer. I don't think she ever said that he wasn't. She did critique the way his characters were in his view of man, but that's a completely different thing.
The idea of morality is stilted and wrong. Now, if Yaron Brook said that that Judeo-Christian values are not Western values, that's just historically ridiculous. That is his.
Because the Dark Ages were the greatest time in Western history. The time when we fully accepted Judeo-Christian values, when we fully integrated them into our society. That was when Western society did so well during the Dark Ages. And And then once we began to question these Judeo-Christian values during the Enlightenment, and once reason came along, oh man, that's when shit went bad. Like the Industrial Revolution, wow, that was a terrible time. And America, the American Revolution, all that terrible stuff that brought us out of the Dark Ages. And ancient Greece, that time where they just had these pagan gods and like didn't viewed gods as similar to men and didn't really worship their gods. And when they put reason before everything else, that was such a terrible society. Such a terrible society. Wow. People didn't even know how to think back then.
Historically ridiculous. Western values, even classical values that predate Judeo-Christian values, come to us through the filter of Judeo-Christian values. And
sure, Thomas Aquinas did bring us back Aristotle, but ultimately Aristotle's ideas were used to question the Judeo-Christian tradition and all throughout the Enlightenment, and ultimately reason and faith do not mix. And religion was largely discredited during the Enlightenment. It doesn't make sense to believe in religion, and these Judeo-Christian values are the reason that the West has not reached its full potential to the extent that it hasn't, as we still hold altruism as our moral code, and it ultimately leads us down bad political paths, and we ultimately still don't hold reason as the only means of obtaining knowledge.
And you cannot think that a civilization that was called Christendom when it started is not a Christian civilization. It is. It's formed by it. Everything we think is formed by it. All the philosophers from Kant to Nietzsche who rejected it were dealing with the...
Kant and Nietzsche, wow, such great philosophers you named there. Not a big fan of those two. I think the best philosophers were the ones that believed in reason. And Nietzsche and Kant are a big reason why the West has adopted anti-reason philosophy at this point. And a lot of that comes from the Christian influence by placing faith above reason.
Christian inheritance. They all were. So it's ridiculous to say that those are not our values and that objectivism somehow are. You know, capitalism is a system. It's a great system. It's the best economic system, but it needs to be hemmed in by morals. It needs to be hemmed in by altruism and by love of neighbor. And without that, Ayn Rand, believe me, would get nowhere in life. I hope.
Oof. I mean, hemming in capitalism by altruism, that sounds like telling these entrepreneurs they can't strive for happiness, they can't strive for their own profits, which ultimately means that we need to force them to stop, because that's ultimately what your morality implies, that we should prevent them from being happy so that they can sacrifice for the people who can't get as much as they can, for the lesser in society, for those people who have failed in life, for the people that are poor, for everyone else, which is what altruism is. And ultimately, that's not capitalism. That will send us back to the Dark Ages. Thank you. I think that's all I have to say for today. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.